So I'm starting this series because I found out that my ex-husband passed away, and I tried to think of one nice thing he's done, and I couldn't come up with not one. But all these memories came back to me. A young, naive girl about to become a woman, and not a feeling of protection. So you will get my stories, but at the end, you will get the moral of my stories too, okay? Because there are some lessons to be learned for young ladies out here. Heck, even the older ladies, okay? Baby, I went down a rabbit hole and dug up some feelings I totally forgot about, okay? So grab your drinks and listen in. Oh, so let me put out this doggone disclaimer, okay? These are true stories based on my life, situations, and facts. Real names are not used to protect the individual. These stories are times in my life and are not in chronological order. So let's get started on the Military Wife series. Y'all ready for episode 2? How I met the husband and what was revealed later on. Ready? Okay, let's go. Baby, when I tell you I can't do these things in chronological order because it's like certain things just come to me out of nowhere. And it's not in chronological order. So y'all getting it like this. Okay. Anyway, I met the husband from my homegirl, Nab. We're going to name her Nab. N-A-B, okay? So the husband was a twin. And my homegirl was dating the twin brother of the husband that I married. We're going to name him Fub, F-U-B. And the twin asked, a.k.a. we're going to name husband Jub, okay? Fub and Jub, the twins, okay? And Jub, a.k.a. husband, asked Nab, my homegirl, if she could hook him up with one of her friends, right? And the heifer chose me. I should be cursing her out to this day, okay? I really should. Nah, but she my homegirl. She my homegirl. So this is how it went down. Nab and myself was working at a college. I was in Hunter College at the time. My sister, my middle sister, is she my middle sister? Yeah, because I was the baby. Middle sister worked at this college. She worked for the head of security, right? She got me an internship, a paid internship to work at the college. My homegirl, Nab, was doing her work study out of the office. Keep the correlation, okay? So I would come from Hunter College to Brooklyn to work my internship at this college, my paid internship, okay? But them extra funds, baby, they was helping them pockets out. Do you hear me? Y'all know how it go. So my friend Nab, again, she was doing her work study out of the same office. Now listen, I was working there for a while, and I never saw Jub, a.k.a. husband. Never saw him. Never saw Fub, a.k.a. the twin of the husband. To be honest, I didn't even know Nab, my homegirl, was dating Fub. Okay? Like, pretty much you ain't know who she was dating, you know. Keep it on the low. Because she was, you know, she was out there. Baby, I hope she never listened to this. Okay? She was a hoe. She was a hoe. You know, she's a hoe. And let me say, she's reformed, though. Y'all will be surprised the career she's in now. She is a reformed hoe. Okay? And she's married. Okay? Ooh, I hope she don't never hear this and put 2 and 2 together. Anyway, long story short, because she worked in the office and we would be in the office sometimes together, finally I met Fub, who was dating my homegirl Nab, right? And then one day he brought in his twin, Jib, a.k.a. husband. Okay? Fine. We was introduced. I was invited to a basketball game. Now, what I did find out is that they played basketball for the college. You know, they was pretty much recruited because they was like 6'5" and could play basketball. That's the, you know, yeah. Anyway, bet. We going to the game. I don't know if it was a day or two later, we at this basketball game. When I entered the gym, I went and sat behind the basketball team. And people was looking at me like I was crazy, right? But I figured, you know, I had that type of pull because I worked for the head of security. I could sit where the hell I wanted to, okay? That's how I felt anyway. I was really like invincible. Anyway, that's how I felt back then. In my 18, 19, 20s. You know, I ain't think, you know. You couldn't tell me nothing. Let me stop. I was a good girl, okay? Doing that was rebellion for me, okay? Just full of naivete. To my surprise, you know, sitting behind the basketball team was a no-no. Get out of here. I sat right behind them. But I figured, you know, Whatever. That's my privileges. I didn't get kicked out, so hey. By the way, Fub and Jub, who quoted themselves at the Twin Towers, they was trash. Boy. They was trash. Like, y'all don't see the hoop, missing rebounds and everything. I'm sure they got their scholarship just based on their appearance, because, baby, they was trash. Okay, they was trash. Anyway, we proceeded to see each other, talk on the phone. He'll come to the office while I was working. By the way, my responsibilities was taking student IDs. Well, doing the student IDs. That was my responsibilities. Okay. You lose an ID, I can retake it. You need a new one, I got you. That was my responsibility at the college. Okay. When I think about it now, he was a love bomber. And at 18, 19 years old, that may seem refreshing, but it ain't a good thing. Because then you get yourself wrapped up into everything they're doing and forget about what you're supposed to be doing. That's how my ass dropped out of a good-ass college and married this fool. Okay? Young and naive. Let me put a spot in for the young ladies. Be selfish with your life. Okay? If you ain't got a man that's supporting your career, dump him. Throw him to the trash. Like those two Twin Towers in a basketball. Okay? Anyway, if y'all don't know what love bombing is, it's someone who's all over you, want to know where you're doing, where you're at. Pop up on you. You think he's surprising you. You know what I'm saying? You think it's cute. Again, at 18, being naive. It was flattering. So listen. I thought me and Nab would be doing double dates, you know, and all that. But shortly after me and Jub, a.k.a. the husband, got into a relationship, Nab and Fub ended what they had. I don't even know what happened with them. But what I do know is my homegirl Nab, she wasn't letting no grass grow up under her feet. She's a hoe. You know she's a hoe. Anyway, she gonna kill me. Lord, please let her never listen to this, okay? She probably be like, girl, you know I was a hoe. But again, she's reformed. She's reformed. She living a totally different life. Great profession. She's married. But anyway, I have to say that. I guess I'm trying to clear my conscience because I'm calling her a hoe. But she knows she was a hoe, okay? So fast forward. In our relationship, I'm going to his house. He's coming to my house. You know, for me, with permissions, because I still lived at home with my mom. You know, Mom's Duke wasn't having it. Bitch, be your ass in this house at a certain time. So, of course, he had to leave my mama's house at a certain time. Like, bye, bye, bye. Okay. What comes to me is that at his house, in his room, because So listen, right? I did not know. I ain't find this out till after I married this man. And my mom's came to bring me something to this building, right? I did not know we were living in a squatter situation. I did not know. If y'all don't know what a squatter situation is, it's a vacant building that people take over, move in. Pretty much they don't pay no rent. They managed to get the electricity and light jimmied up, probably using somebody else's stuff. Yeah, they would do some shit like that. But I just did not know at that time. When I tell you my blinders was on, my blinders was on. But what I will say is, in this SWATers building, it was kept very clean. It was very well kept. But, you know, anyway. And there, so the boys had an apartment. So it was the twins, Fub and Jub. And they had a brother named, I was getting ready to say his name, Lord. They had a brother named, I'm going to call him Fly Guy, because he was the fly guy of the brothers, right? So they had their own apartment. It was like a 3-bedroom apartment. Fly Guy lived in the front room. When you walk down the hall, there was the kitchen, there was the living room. On the left-hand side was Jub's room, a.k.a. the husband. And then adjoined to his room was Fub's room, right? Fub was barely there. He had, I don't know what he had going on, but he was barely there. But anyway, what comes to mind in his room was that there was this picture hanging on the wall. It was him, a woman, and 2 little boys. Like a family picture. And I was like, who is that? I found out he had kids. I think he was 16 when he had them or whatever. But he explained that away and they not together and boop, boop, the boop, boop. So, I believed him because I was stupid and naive at that time, okay? I never seen her, never came in contact with her the whole time we was together. So it was not an issue for me. And baby, I almost wish it was. But I have to say, although I'm talking about these stories in the past, and I feel like I had to go through this in order to become the person that I am and learn those life lessons. But anyway, let's move on. Because baby, had he told me they were still together, I would have walked away. I really would have. Because listen, in the 9th grade, I had this guy from 7th grade to 9th grade tried to get me to be his girlfriend. And we went on a senior trip. We sat together on the bus. We became boyfriend and girlfriend. We was kissing and all that stuff. And being touchy-feely. You know how that go. But actually, he's the one that taught me how to kiss. Come on, y'all know them hormones when y'all young. But later on, one of my homegirls from school, this is in junior high school, called me and was like, he goes with... I was about to say her name too. He goes with, let's call her Barbara. Hey, Shirley, this is Barbara. And I was like, oh, really? Well, you can have him. Okay. And we ain't never talked since then. So I would have dropped his ass had it been some little friction. One thing I don't do is play second fiddle. I ain't got time for it, baby. Let's continue this story. So anyway, young naive me. Okay. You wouldn't have been able to convince me that he was seeing anybody else anyway, because we was pretty much together all the damn time once we started seeing each other. Okay. And remember, that was my 18, 19-year-old self. Okay. The grown woman now knows that, people make time for what they want to make time for. We were not together 24/7. He probably was spending time with that lady in the picture with them kids at some point. Okay. Anyway, fast forward. Jub had a friend. We're going to name him Lips because he has some big ass lips. Okay. And he pretty much wanted me to hook him up with one of my girls. It was not Nab. It was another friend of mine. We're going to name her Pretty because she was a pretty girl. And, all the guys flocked to her. But she was a little ditzy. But that's neither here nor there. We double dated a few times, But they pretty much did their own thing. And I just want to note this couple for later. You know what I'm saying? To the story I'm going to tell you just in a few minutes. So keep in mind Nab, my homegirl. Keep in mind Lips and Pretty. And keep in mind that picture on the wall I told y'all about. So one day, while we into this relationship, Jub comes to my house. He called me before to tell me he had something to tell me. And I'm like, all right, cool. What the hell? Okay. He wanted to tell me that he was joining the Navy and he will be leaving for boot camp. Now, I can't remember if it was like 2 months later. It was some months later. And baby, I cried because it was like he was breaking up with me. I cried like a baby. I mean, the whole shebang, snot, tears, cried like a baby, okay? And he was hugging me and kissing my tears and all this other crap, right? Consoling me. And listen, I was distraught, okay? In my head, it was like the love of my life, the man who took my virginity, the man who occupied all my damn time was leaving me. See, and that's what I'm talking about, that love bombing. And he get to just walk up and leave. So ladies, be careful. That's why you got to have your own life in a relationship. Okay. But what I want y'all to do is remember this part. Because what he told me about this later, it was effed up in hindsight. Especially for an 18, 19-year-old naive young girl. Okay. Anyway, as I told y'all, Fub and Jub was trash in basketball, a.k.a. the Twin Towers. They was trash. So their basketball career didn't work out. So their next step was to go into the Navy. Okay. They was trash. Of course, they didn't finish college. So I feel like some months before he was going into boot camp, right? I was at my part-time job, and Jub and Lips coming there in the office smiling like they crazy. And Jub gets down on one knee and asks me to marry him. The man proposed to me at my part-time job. It was nothing grand, but it was grand to me at 18 and 19 years old. Let me stop acting like, it wasn't grand. It was grand to me at 18 or 19 years old. And of course I said yes. That's why, I was in that situation. My sister was there. But I think she pretty much knew about it. They planned it or whatever. I don't even know. Or she at least made sure I was going to be at that desk. I was excited now and shocked at the same time. I was never one of those girls who wanted to be married. I was goal oriented, focused on college. I already knew I wanted to become an accountant, But here I was, ready to throw it all to the wind. Because this man loved me and he wanted to marry me. So we proceeded to start wedding planning. I feel like, if I can remember correctly, he wanted to get married either before boot camp or right after boot camp, because then he was going to be stationed somewhere or something to that effect, baby. And I'm going to tell y'all a story about that too. Let me tell you, he told me some things later on in life, baby. I'm going to tell y'all a story about that too. It might be included here because it makes perfect sense to include that here as well. But anyway, so as he went off to boot camp, I continued going to school, doing my part-time job, and baby, I got plenty of advice, okay? Don't have children so early. Get to know your spouse. Baby, I wish I had took that advice to heart, okay? I would have saved me so much heartbreak and betrayal. Everybody was saying I was too young. What's the rush? Finish school. If only I had listened, okay? I'd be in the career I really wanted to be in, okay? I was going to college to become an accountant, which I mentioned earlier. I'm not an accountant, but I do work in finance. Like, my dad didn't even walk me down the aisle. He was so against me marrying so young, but he got the nerve because, okay, child, I don't even want to talk about my daddy who was cheating on my mama with the lady that lived around the corner whose kids we played with. But anyway, I digress, okay? Like, my dad didn't even show up. He said he would do it, but he didn't even show up. My brother ended up walking me down the aisle. It was to the point that my childhood pastor refused to do the ceremony. Like, I had so many signs not to marry this man. I really did. But can't tell a naive young girl who in love, you can't tell her nothing. But my mom, she had connections. She ended up, hooking us up with this pastor and the church. So we had a wedding, okay? Oh, and before y'all ask, my mom thought I was too young as well. But what she knew is that I was going to do what I wanted to do anyway. She knew I was going to marry Jug, okay? I probably would have ran off and eloped her. She said no. Okay, you couldn't tell me nothing. Come hell or high water, I was going to marry Jub, okay? So my mom made my wedding dress. My mom could sew her ass off. Every year for school, we would go to the material store, get some patterns, and I was fly every year. Anyway, I miss my mom. I love her. An important note that I forgot to mention. Well, I ain't forget to mention. I'm going to bring it up, right? So, Fub and Jub, after we definitely got married after boot camp because they got married in their uniforms, their little sailor uniforms. But guess what? Fub ended up finding a wife to marry, and she had the same name as mine. Let's just say our names was Mother Teresa. No, just play. But our names was the same. So it was twins marrying wives with the same name. Child, please. But let me tell you, the day of the wedding, we were so late coming to the church because now I was ready. Me and my maid of honor, we was ready. We had the limo. We got in the limo first. We went to the other wife house and we was waiting on her. Sign number, how many signs was that I said? My father ain't show up. I was late to the church. My childhood pastor didn't want to meet. That was 3 signs right there. But did I take heed to any? But anyway, that's why I'm telling these stories, okay? Because I need some young women to know that you really got to take direction of your life. Don't let no man, at this point, no woman, steer you away from what you want to do. And not that you can't rebound, but don't let no man or woman stir you away from what you want to be in life. But let me get back to this story, okay? Because, baby, I keep jumping off to these life lessons. Okay? So remember those points I told y'all to remember, right? Well, Nab was not excited for me, okay? She was mad at me because I chose one of my childhood friends to be my maid of honor. And she felt like she should have been the maid of honor because she introduced me to Jub, aka the husband. So she ain't even show up to the wedding. Now remember Pretty and Lips? She only came to my wedding because Lips was in the wedding as Jub's, aka the husband, best man. Do you know she had the nerve to say to me when I got engaged that she thought her and Lips were going to be engaged first? Yep. So it's safe to say she felt the way. And I don't even think she was upset that she wasn't part of my wedding party. But it was just the fact that I got engaged first. Yeah. I think that's what it really was. Y'all got friends like that? Throw them in the trash. Okay? Because they mean you know well. So I also found out later on that some of the people that Fub and Jub invited to this wedding, which were some guys, but there were also some females from the college that came to the wedding. At least 2 of them were talking to Fub and Jub. Just trifling. Just trifling. And I found that out from Nab, you know, once she got over being mad at me. Like, we ain't talked for months after I got married. But in hindsight, listen, if those heifers thought they was going to sneak off to the side and do a quickie or something, it wasn't happening with Jub. It wasn't happening with him because I was on him. Everywhere he moved, I moved. Just like that. That's how naive I was, baby. So here's the last point that I wanted y'all to remember. Remember, he came to me telling me he had to tell me something, and he let me know he was going into the Navy, and I cried like a baby. Remember that? Well, listen. Years later, this is years later, after we done separated, we still had communication because we had our daughter together. But years later, I don't know, he felt like having confessions with me, clearing the air, clearing his conscience. I don't know. He told me that particular week, he went to 5 different women, including the lady in the picture with the 2 children. Now, he was talking to 5 different women. I'm thinking I'm the only one. He was talking to 5 different women. He went to 5 different women to get their reaction from the same story he told me, that he was leaving to go to the Navy. And I'm the only one that had the most honest reaction. That's because them bitches knew his trifling ass was trifling. I know. I was naive, 18 or 19. He got me fresh out of high school, fresh out of my mama house. Ain't never paid no bills, nothing. So 2 more things that came to me, you know, as I'm writing these stories down to, you know, remember them how they went, right? So as I described that apartment to you, one day me and Jub was at the apartment. We were in the living room watching TV or whatever. It was early. It was like an early Saturday. And you know, I had a curfew, right? So Fub comes in with a girl. Now I done seen him with Minnie. So I ain't going to say it was his girlfriend, but I done seen him with Minnie, right? And, you know, we sitting there. We go get lunch or whatever. We eat our food. And Jub is, you know, kissing me in front of them and playing with me. And I was like, boy, stop. You know, because I was really shy. So kissing in front of somebody made me feel awkward. He was doing the most. And my dumb ass is sitting there. Bitch, at this big age, it just dawned on me. I was trying to groom me, but I was so naive. I wasn't sleeping with no 2 men at the same time. I only knew how to do it to one. Okay. I just lost my virginity. Now, mind you, I left because I had a curfew. I had to go home. My mama wasn't playing. I couldn't spend the night at his house. He couldn't spend the night at my house, right? So, again, in this years later confession, you know, once I found out the man cheated on me, I would ask him, remember that time? I asked about this time. Well, I found out that him and Fub both had sex with this young lady that came there. But I also, when I think about it, I feel like she came there for that. So he said after he came back from walking me to the bus stop, Fred and this lady, a woman, was in the living room having sex, and he joined in. Thank God for mama's curfew, okay? Because I'd have been caught up in some debauchery at such a young age, okay? And the second thing about this apartment, right? After we had moved out down to Virginia or whatever, you know, I used to talk to his mom, and his mom told me that Fly Guy had a woman move in with her children, and they used the room that we were in for her children. And as she was cleaning up, she lifted up the mattress, and there was pictures of women under the bed, like naked women. This is years later after we done split up. Like, why people do that after y'all break up? They want to tell y'all all kinds of shit. Warn me before. And that concludes this story. That's how I became a military wife. I married this fool with blinders on, and I just chalk it up to being super young, super naive, and thinking I was in love. But baby, the moral of the story, take your time and get to know the person you with, because they will reveal themselves to you. They'll show you who they really are. Like, stop ignoring those red flags.
Like, you don't have to ask, did he love me? Or ask him, do he love you at all? Because his actions will always show you how he really feels about you. Believe what you see and feel versus what he's talking about. Okay? And men, just be honest with your partners. Get out your ego. Get out the way. I know men are built to conquer, but how much ussy do y'all really need? Okay? Don't go out derailing and destroying young ladies' lives or women's lives because you're being selfish and want it all for yourself. Like, be honest.
Again, don't get married so young. Be so selfish with your life and your goals and your dreams. If your person ain't uplifting you and making it all about them, run. Y'all want to hear about how he married me, moved me to Virginia, and looked me in my eyes and told me, new city, new pussy? Yeah, comment down below. And I got y'all.